Welcome to the pandemic version of Parkinson's Network of Mount Diablo Support. I'm Heather Kennedy. I write for Kathleen Kiddo. I'm an accidental advocate and activist for Parkinson's because just like this quarantine, Parkinson's is not exactly what I had planned. I won't spend too much time on this virus because I don't have any authority and I have access to the same information as you. But I will repeat that the social distancing is not really the right word. It is, in fact, physical distancing. And we do an amount of that anyway because we all have a movement disorder, or we know someone with a movement disorder and we are caregivers. So social distancing, we've been practicing for this since our diagnosis, folks. We ought to be real good at this part. I don't mean to be insensitive to people whose lives have changed drastically, who feel like they've lost their entire savings or their investments or their livelihoods or loved ones, in fact. There are people I know who are suffering tremendously, especially people in other countries. For example, Uganda. I know someone in a town of maybe 150 or 250, it's a very small town, and Kabugo reports that they're getting wiped out, the entire town. He fears for the life of his last living relative. It's no exaggeration to say that this is an epic pandemic, not unlike what well, I guess it is unlike, but I think of the Black Death, for example, the 1300s, when half of Europe was wiped out. And that wasn't the first plague. Mother Earth and all of its inhabitants have been through worse. So grab your apple juice or your champagne, apple juice, and have a sip. Toast to yourself for making it this far. Look at us. We made it. How many of our ancestors worked and toiled to get us to this place? We can't lose hope now. E.B. White in 1973 penned a spectacular celebration of the human spirit when he answered someone named Mr. Nadeau who had lost hope and faith in humanity. It's really quite beautiful. I'm going to read you this now so that you can remember to have some hope. Like I said, kids, we've been here before. Dear Mr. Nadeau, as long as there is one upright man and woman, and as long as there is one compassionate person left, the contagion may spread and the scene is not desolate. In this case, contagion meaning hope, of course. Just to be clear. Hope is the thing that is left to us in a bad time. I shall get up Sunday morning and wind the clock as a contribution to order and steadfastness. Sailors have an expression about the weather. They say, "The weather is a great bluffer." I guess the same is true of our human society. Things can look dark. Then a break shows in the clouds, and all is changed. Just like when our medication hits in Parkinson's. Nothing is permanent. Sometimes it happens rather suddenly. It is quite obvious that the human race has made a queer mess of life on this planet, but as a people, we probably harbor seeds of goodness that have lain for a long time, waiting to sprout when the conditions are right. Our curiosity, our relentlessness, our inventiveness and ingenuity have led us deep into trouble. We can only hope that the same traits will enable us to claw our way out. Hang on to your hat. Put your chin strap on. Taking some artistic liberty here. Hang on to your hope and wind the clock, for tomorrow is another day. I call myself an accidental, advocate and activist, but what about an accidental renaissance? What if right now we had the kind of situation that allowed us to step out of our comfort zone a little bit, out of our schedules, out of the places where we feel super comfortable and might have been stagnating quite a bit longer than necessary, because we need to get a little crazy and go and think outside the box just to survive this disease called Parkinson's. It's a degenerative, progressive, incurable brain disease. We got this, guys. You don't need to look any further for the Center for Healthy Minds, or UCSF's psych department, or 10% Happier or Headspace to know that many of us are hungry for a little bit of information on how to calm down and live less in the material world at this time. We are anguished, we're in misery. We're on cognitive decline, and that stuff's real. Our anguish is real, our anxiety is real, it's part of Parkinson's, but it doesn't have to overtake us. You know, these non-motor symptoms are really beastly. I think about them a lot, actually. Depression, irritability, anxiety, paranoia even. That might be more of a side effect of our medications. It is absolutely mandatory that you find mental health help and a professional if you have Parkinson's. I don't know why this is not a mandatory demand made as soon as you leave that doctor's office. When they shove you out into the light with your prescription and you're going, carbidopa, what the heck is that? And you're standing there on the street and everything looks different. And you just heard they dropped the P-bomb, as Emma Lawton likes to say. They told you, you have Parkinson's. You're standing there, you're completely disoriented. This is not like Bob Ross's happy little mistake. This is a real mistake and something must be wrong and I'm going to die. It's not a death sentence. Then you research Michael J. Fox, who has a staff of 15, whatever. But you know you can do this, right? If I can do it, anybody can do it. And so we look to the wise elders. We go to our touchstones. We go see people who we know, or even virtually at this point, who we know might have a different perspective. Not the Pollyannas. We don't need someone to always say, hey, everything's great. No, it's not always great. Moods are fleeting. Emotions are. Times are changing. Everything's changing. We don't even know from 1 minute or 1 hour, rather, to the next if our medications will hit or we will be able to move appropriately with fluidity, relative fluidity. As the wonderful friend of ours, Carol Fisher, likes to quote, if you've met one person with Parkinson's, you've met one person with Parkinson's. We all have it a little different. And yet there are some qualities we all share. You know, it's almost like we've been here before, which leads me to Hafiz. Hafiz is a poet, a Persian poet who was alive in the 1300s, so the 14th century poet in Persia, which is right around the time of that Black Death, by the way, that was happening in Europe. And he writes in his poem, Your Mother and My Mother. Fear is the cheapest room in the house. I would like to see you living in better conditions. Your mother and my mother were friends. I know the innkeeper in this part of the universe, so go get some rest tonight. Come to my verse again tomorrow, and we'll go speak to the friend together. I should not make any promises right now, but if I know you, and I know if you pray, somewhere in this world something good will happen. God wants to see more love and playfulness in your eyes. That's how you boost your immune system. Love, playfulness. It's the healthiest thing you can do. For that is your greatest witness to him. Your soul and my soul once sat together in the beloved's womb playing footsie. Your heart and my heart are very, very old friends. There was just a flood in Yemen a few days ago. Can you imagine this mudslide in one of the poorest areas? These people are just buried beneath the mud. In the middle of this pandemic, when they don't have adequate health care, masks, gloves, are you kidding me? These people don't even have shoes, some of them. And now they have a massive flooding. These wise elders like Hafiz have been here for the millennia, and they're still with us, and we still count on their wisdom. Hafiz simply means one who has memorized the Quran, so I can't speak I can't pronounce his real name. It's quite difficult. A tongue twister for anyone speaking English. We have a cognitive problem anyway, so I'm not even going to try it. So, this accidental renaissance. I think of all the accidents that happened during times when they were least expected, like penicillin. You know, this guy Fleming, he left his Petri dishes out and spray them with some form of Lysol at the time, to try to figure out why they were all growing this mold. And he noticed some strange things that led to the development of penicillin. Quite by accident, he saved millions of lives. Or what about the guy that did the pacemaker? Who's that dude? Wilson something? Wilson Greatbotch? He was plugging in cords and devices to do some kind of heart rhythm device, and he started to hear lub-dub, lub-dub, lub-dub. And he realized that by inserting this new device, he could mimic a heartbeat and keep the heart going in a way that kept people alive, thus creating the pacemaker, saving millions of lives. Totally by accident. I also read somewhere that Shakespeare, I think, wrote one of his great, maybe Romeo and Juliet, during the plague. I mean, there's some extraordinary, accidental, and horrific circumstances that end up leaving us with some pretty cool things. And what cool thing can you do from inside your house, since I'm guessing that you're distancing physically at least? Please tell me that you are. We are indeed more susceptible, many of us with autoimmune problems, in addition to our Parkinson's diagnosis. Of course, that does not mean to distance socially. I think that's the wrong way to put it. It does not mean to distance with your intimacy and your intimates. If you don't have a handle on technology, find someone who does and get on the horn with them. It's fun. I've talked to more old friends than usual lately, including someone I have not seen since 1990 who asked me to do a video explaining on and off. I'm starting to hit a little off period right now.